Dusk slowly thickened over the city, and the citizens, as usual, turned down their TV sets and adjusted themselves to sleep. And only in the maternity ward of the city hospital was the light on, and there was a quiet conversation between the two nurses. "Ellen, how long are you going to grieve? He's gone, so good riddance," Ginny said, trying to find the right words to reassure her friend. "Yes, I understand everything. I just love him very much. I'm sure it's because I could not give him a son in 10 years. All his friends are fathers, and I'm barren. Who needs me like this at 39? Exclaimed Ellen, with tears in her eyes. "Look, a normal man will never leave a good wife. Life has liberated you from him," replied Ginny. In response to this, Ellen only kept silent. It was easy for Ginny to say that because she had a loving husband and children waiting for her at home. Ellen really did not want to go back to the apartment, where, after Paul's leaving, everything seemed so joyless. Work as a nurse in a maternity hospital was her only consolation. Every day, seeing the happy faces of parents holding their babies in their arms, Ellen felt a barely perceptible sense of envy. She wanted, just like these young mothers, to hold her baby in her arms and surround him with love and care. Ellen had dreamed of becoming a nurse since childhood. She loved to put on her mother's white chef's coat and look for a long time at her reflection in the mirror, representing herself as a nurse. Mother saw her daughter's desire and supported her certainly, and after school, Ellen enrolled at nursing school. Working in a maternity hospital, Ellen often warmly remembered her mother, who helped make her cherished dream come true. Unfortunately, an insidious illness took the unfortunate woman's life just 6 months ago, and Ellen severely suffered the loss of a dear person, and now Paul has left her for another woman. From a state of painful memories, Ellen was brought out by Ginny's voice. "Ellen, let's go to the 7th ward. There's a woman in labour brought in serious condition. They say she got sick at the train station and lost consciousness. Apparently a homeless woman. Her belly is huge. Maybe she has twins. I feel a difficult delivery is ahead of us." Ellen immediately dismissed her sad thoughts and followed her friend. To her surprise, the woman in labour turned out to be very young. She did not even look 20 years old, and she was on the verge of physical exhaustion. Ellen came up to the girl and, addressing her with care and concern, asked her how she was feeling and what her name was. In the girl's eyes immediately sparkled a light of hope that she would be helped here and would not be judged. Her name was Sandra, but to learn more, Ellen never could. Soon Sandra began having incessant contractions, and an hour later 3 twins, 2 boys and a girl, were born. The doctor, who heads the department, wiping his forehead with a damp napkin, tiredly muttered, "This is unbelievable, colleagues. In my practice, this is the first such case. Only the girl didn't look happy at all. There were tears in the corner of her huge Bambi-like eyes, and it was clear that there was not an ounce of joy in them." In the evening, when the excitement around the unusual birthing woman gradually faded, Ellen looked into the ward to Sandra. "And why are you sad, honey? You should be proud of you. Such happiness. 3 babies. Many people only dream of this." In response, Sandra wiped away a tear and, sniffing her nose, replied briefly, "I have nothing to be happy about. Some people are happy, others are not." After these words, she turned to the wall. Ellen shook her head and went to her post. The night promised to pass quietly, and the woman was spending the time reading some unpretentious novel about love. But alas, she was not destined to enjoy a book like that. Ellen, who always reacted sensitively to any noise, suddenly heard the collective crying of a few babies. Cautiously walking down the corridor, she realized that the crying was coming from the ward with 3 babies. When the nurse opened the door, she saw that the window was wide open and there was no one in the room except the 3 crying babies. Apparently, Sandra had run away from the maternity ward. "My God! How could it be? Why did your mother leave you?" whispered Ellen, taking each of the babies in her arms in turn to comfort them. Soon the news that Sandra had escaped spread throughout the maternity ward. "Ellen, your shift is nearly over. It's time to go home. Your eyes are already red from lack of sleep," said Ginny, hugging her friend by the shoulders. "Ginny, thank you for your concern, but I'll be on duty some more. I'm not tired at all. I'll sit with them. No one needs them. You know they're not your family, and they'll never be. You know that very well." "Well, good luck with that. I'm going home," said Ginny in farewell. And Ellen meanwhile continued to care for the babies, even though she had already had a legal day off, and only at the request of the head of the maternity department the woman agreed to go home to rest. But instead of resting, Ellen went to the guardianship office to find out about her chances of adopting a baby. "Don't get us wrong, but we cannot grant your request. Your marital status does not allow us to give you 3 children to raise. You are divorced, and a nurse's salary would hardly allow you to provide for such a large family. Improve your living, family, and financial conditions, and then submit your application for adoption. The children will stay in an orphanage for now," said the child welfare officer. In frustration, Ellen went home. Such injustice could not be imagined in her mind. That day, Ellen was crying until the evening. The bitterness of being separated from the babies squeezed her heart, causing unbearable heartache. Imperceptibly, rustling the pages of a tear-off calendar, 3 months flew by. All this time, Ginny had been dissuading her friend from trying to get custody of the babies. "Ellen, please, come to your senses. Why do you need such a burden on your neck? 3 children are very heavy. You should arrange your life. But you're trying to arrange others." "You don't understand, Ginny. I love them, and I feel like they're family to me, and I have enough time to fix my personal life," confidently answered Ellen, who had been visiting the kids at the orphanage on weekends all this time. Once, on her way home from work, Ellen saw Sandra. She seemed tired and exhausted, which made her look a few years older. At first, Ellen intended to just walk by, but then, nevertheless, she approached the negligent mother and said, "Hello, I see that you do not even suffer from conscience. How is it possible to abandon your children and live on your own, as if it has nothing to do with you?" In respect, the girl lowered her eyes and, wiping away the flood of tears, said, "You see, I came to the capital from the provinces. I was 18. I was promised a job as a maid in a hotel, but they tricked me into working in... I got pregnant by a client, and they threw me out. No place to live, no money. I wanted to end my life, and I couldn't. I am weak-willed." "Do you have any relatives?" asked Ellen, shocked by the girl's confession. "No one. I'm an orphan," answered Sandra, and burst into tears. All right, sweetheart, stop it. Come with me. Stop wandering the streets, or you'll get in trouble," offered Ellen, taking the girl by the hand. Already at home over a cup of tea, she told Sandra that the babies were named Thomas, Molly and Greg. "Are they really doing well?" the girl asked hopefully. "Yes, and I visit them from time to time," replied Ellen, who heard in the girl's voice notes of care and longing for the children. The next day, Ellen helped Sandra find a job. One of her friends worked in a supermarket and had long complained that it did not have enough cashiers in the sales area. Sandra, upon hearing this, happily jumped at the offer. "There you go, honey. See? Life is getting better little by little. Now we have to think hard about how to get the kids back," said Ellen, smiling. This time, before going to the guardianship, the woman prepared more thoroughly. She took references from her workplace and data on income. She did not forget to consult a lawyer so that she knew all the ins and outs of applying for guardianship. The guardianship service was very surprised to see Ellen for the second time, but now the woman's paperwork was flawless and her petition was approved. So, thanks to her persistence and perseverance, after a month or so, Ellen and Sandra were able to take the children out of the orphanage. Since they worked in shifts, they took turns caring for the children, filling in for each other. Time passed quickly. Before the happy women could look back, the year flew by. Sandra had already adapted to the work in the supermarket and was considered one of the best salespersons. Ellen, as before, worked in the maternity ward, helping women in labour. But only now she found meaning in her life. If before she used to come home from work to an empty apartment, now she was greeted by the cheerful hubbub and joyful laughter of children. Of course, without a loved one near, happiness could not be considered complete, but Ellen preferred not to dwell on it. As for Sandra, a pleasant young man appeared in her life. Modest girl rarely talked about him, but Ellen knew that his name was Edward, and he was a security guard at the same supermarket where Sandra worked. Their relationship developed gradually. At first, it was just shy mutual glances and smiles, but over time it came down to a first date. More than anything, Sandra was afraid that Edward, upon hearing that she was a mother of 3, would leave her. But the man, to his credit, was very decent, and he was not embarrassed by the 3 children of his beloved girlfriend. As it turned out, the guy was raised by his father, and for most of his childhood he grew up without his mother. "Are you in love, Sandra?" asked Ellen. "I am. You know, he's so nice, and he asked me to marry him. We've already set the date. It's just going to be a ceremony with friends, and then we're going to celebrate at a restaurant." "Wow, that's news! Well done. And thanks for letting me know in time, because I do not have a proper dress," said Ellen, smiling. She, who was happy that things were going well with Sandra. The month flew by, and the long-awaited wedding day arrived. At the ceremony, the young couple invited their colleagues and Edward's father and Ellen. After the newlyweds exchanged rings and went to the restaurant, Ellen decided to go home. The woman was worried about the babies, who were left in the care of a nanny. To Ellen's surprise, George, Edward's father, volunteered to escort her. "Well, what should I do here with the young people? Let them have fun," he explained, seeing Ellen's questioning look. On their way to Ellen's house, they got to talking. The man said that after his wife's death, he had not been able to tie his life to anyone. "We fought for her life for a long time, but it was all to no avail," explained the man, whose voice sounded sad. Upon entering Ellen's apartment, he immediately noticed that her house was missing a man's hand. "The hinges of your door are creaking. They need oiling. And the hanger in the hallway could fall off. Why don't I come over tomorrow with some tools and fix everything? Yes, I do not mind. And now there is a cake waiting for us, said the woman with a smile. The evening passed in a pleasant and comfortable atmosphere, and Ellen caught herself thinking that she had not had such a good rest for a long time. They played together with the children, and then George went home. It is worth saying that George kept his promise, and within a week he fixed Ellen's apartment. The woman was pleased to have such a welcomed and pleasant guest. Unnoticed by themselves, their relationship grew from friendly to something more, and now it was Sandra's turn to be happy for Ellen. Of course, at first Ellen and George did not show off their relationship and were as shy as teenagers, but then they announced themselves as a couple, to the delight of Sandra and Edward. Wow! Now we have another wedding waiting for us, the joyful newlyweds exclaimed in unison. In response, Ellen and George just smiled, and 3 months later they legalized their relationship. Ellen went to live with George, who had a small house outside the city. Sandra often brought the children there at Ellen's invitation, and there, among nature and clean air, Ellen finally felt completely happy. There was a beloved man beside her, triplets, whom she loved as her own, happy Sandra, whom she considered her little sister, and about 6 months later, Ellen found out that she was pregnant. It is hard to say who was most excited about this news, but they both were sure that happiness and love settled in their home for a long time.